Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I am Goth, and if you're watching this, that means it's officially Spooktober. I plan on releasing this video October 1st. If that doesn't happen, I'm very sorry. But in this video we're going to be going over some speed paints, well not really speed paints, but time lapses of Inktober art, and answering just some questions that I've gotten from you guys, and just general questions that I've gotten over and over and over in the past. So without further ado, let's get into it. So this first question is one that I get a lot, just from random people all over the place. It's what art programs do I normally use? The biggest one that I've been using lately has been Procreate for the iPad. That is a very, very big investment. First you have to invest in an iPad, which is several $100s. It took me a while to save up for that. And then the best way to do it is with an Apple Pencil or a similar pressure-sensitive tablet pen. I have an Apple Pencil because I thought my old iPad would work with it and then didn't. And then you have to invest in Procreate, which is another $10. But what's $10 when you've already spent $400? But that's so far my favorite art program to use. Another one that I use on my PC is Krita, or Krita, however it's pronounced. I've always said Krita. Yeah. It's completely free. It's kind of just Photoshop without all the extra fancy bits. It's just the drawing part of Photoshop. I really enjoy using that. It's a fairly friendly user interface. It works with pretty much every pen tablet I've used, other than my like 10-year-old Wacom tablet that I got used. It for some reason it just automatically scrolls in almost infinitely with that. And then for photo editing, I really like to use Paint.net. That's another free program. It's kind of an in-between for MS Paint and Photoshop. It's got way more than MS Paint offers. It's got layers, it's got opacity support, it's got all that jazz. And it doesn't have as much as Krita even, but it has a lot more options when it comes to like contrast, hues, saturation, curves, all that. So that's what I use all the time to edit my traditional art, like what you see on screen now. I use it to just make it completely black and white. I'll use the clone stamp tool so it looks more even if I miss any like pencil marks for erasing. And just overall it's a really, really great free program for just getting into art. I used to use it all the time for drawing, and I'll still use it for pixel art from time to time. I don't do it as much as I used to anymore, but when I do actually do pixel art, I will use Paint.net almost exclusively for it. But those are definitely the three I recommend. I've tried Fire Alpaca. I'm not personally a fan of it. Same with IBIS Paint. They're just not my thing. They're not really user interfaces that I like. GIMP is another pretty good free one, but that one's really not user-friendly. That's the first one I ever used, but it's all really personal preference. Whatever kind of user interface you guys prefer, just stick with that. Alright, next up I had some questions about movies. So, what are my favorite horror movies, thriller movies, and anime movies? Horror movies, I really like the so bad it's good genre. One of my favorite movies is called Haunted Ween, and I got a VHS copy of it for 80 cents. Oh no, I got it for 10 cents, and it turns out it's worth around $80 in the condition I have it. It's 2.5 hours of absolute nonsense. It's supposed to be a horror movie, but it's really not. It's like a comedy. But my favorite actual horror movie would have to be Cannibal Holocaust. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of like actual gore in it, so I don't recommend it if that's something you're sensitive to. But it's definitely a really interesting watch. In terms of thriller movies, the two favorites that I have are Old Boy and what was the other one? And Men Behind the Sun. Both of them are really, really gritty, really dark topics. Old Boy it has to do with like revenge. There's a lot of violence in it. It's very action oriented. Men Behind the Sun has to do with genocides, internment camps, and human experimentation. So again, really, really not for the faint of heart, but I definitely recommend them if horror movies and really, really intense films are up your alley. Old Boy and Men Behind the Sun are both foreign films. They do have English dubs, which are actually really good for being dubs, but If you want to get the full experience, obviously watch the original language. But if you just want something to put on and not really have to pay attention to it completely, the dubs are actually really good for that. So I definitely recommend those. The last movie question was, what's my favorite animated movie? I don't really watch a whole lot of animated movies other than like anime movies, but even then I don't watch a lot of those. But my favorite, like, more child-oriented, I guess you could say, animated movie would be Coraline. That was the first, like, I guess you could say horror movie, because it's really creepy, it's really unsettling for kids. That was the first one I ever went to go see in theaters, and it's just stuck with me ever since. But more adult-oriented animated films, I really enjoyed watching Grave of the Fireflies recently. It's really depressing, so again, not for the faint of heart, but it's just absolutely amazing, and I cried. Like, it's tears. Little small goth tears. Alright, next up was more of like a joke question, but I found it really, really interesting. I was asked, what is the nastiest pizza I've ever eaten or seen? I'll put a picture up on screen. My friend is in the room and she's looking at me like she wants to murder me. Just for the photo, I put chocolate Cheerios on a pepperoni pizza. It didn't taste as bad as you would think, but it looks absolutely horrifying. And then in the picture, there's also a Sharpie and a pocket knife, or a pen knife, or whatever kind of knife it is. No, it's a utility knife, that's right. But yeah, it's kind of horrifying to look at, honestly. It's not the best thing in the world, but it didn't taste the worst, which was very, very surprising to me. Those are flavors that don't go together, and I didn't hate it. I wouldn't do it again, but I didn't hate it. Alright, next up is a more in-depth question. It's, what are some of my biggest art inspirations? Mostly I take from just two different things, real life stuff and then other artists. In terms of real life stuff, for quite a while I've struggled with a lot of symptoms of depression and anxiety. I've never been actually diagnosed, but I have enough of the symptoms to warrant being concerned. A lot of those thoughts, like those depressed and anxious thoughts and feelings, kind of manifest in weird little brain creatures that just plague my nightmares. It's horrible, but I draw them a lot. Unfortunately, every human being in my life has one of these just horrible brain creatures. And a lot of the times when I'm drawing like vent art and whatnot, it'll be those things. A lot of my old art was really, really anxiety and depression based. It was very gory, very graphic, very creepy. I don't really draw that stuff as much now. I still will push myself to draw it because that's the kind of content that I like to consume. So it's weird when I don't make that content a little bit. But overall, I definitely prefer making like the cute, fun, bubbly stuff that I make now. It's still kind of spooky, kind of gritty, but it's not over the top and super depressive. Depressive? I can't speak. It's 2:30 in the morning. So we're gonna keep going. Another one, I have really weird dreams all the time, especially of like locations. I don't really draw the locations, but sometimes I'll wake up, I'll see something in my dreams, I'll wake up, I'll draw it. A lot of my old characters were like that. And then makeup. A lot of the times my newer OCs are based on makeups and like groups of accessories that I have, and I'll just go over the top with it. My main OC, my mascot Lilith, she is just completely based on a makeup I did. That I was supposed to go to a wedding that day, and then we never got the address, so we just kind of hung out and did our own thing. But that exact outfit is pretty much what I was wearing that day, horns and ears and all. So we went to the mall, and I got followed around by security because I looked really weird. And it's just how I look all the time. And I love it. I love looking like that. I love looking weird and creepy and chaotic. And then the other part of my inspirations is other artists. The two like manga artists that I really, really get inspired by are Junji Ito and Hirohiko Araki. They are the creators of mangas such as Uzumaki of the Smashed anthology, Geo, that's Junji Ito, and then Araki, he did JoJo, and everyone knows JoJo, and if you don't know JoJo, everyone's gonna harass you about it, so probably don't ask about JoJo if you don't like anime. And then another couple artists that I really enjoy are Ghoulkiss. She does just absolutely precious, adorable art of like demons and monsters, and it's just so cool to me that she can just portray these like horrific monsters in such a cute fashion. She's the one that did the Monster Girl Maker 1 and 2 apps on iOS and Android. I really recommend checking them out if you like character creators. It's absolutely phenomenal. And then horror-wise, I have a few that I really enjoy. Maxime Takardi, he is a blood artist. He works almost exclusively with inks and blood, like his own blood that he gets from himself in various ways. Again, if you're sensitive to that sort of thing, definitely don't recommend checking him out. But some of his art is safe for work. It's definitely creepy, but not all of it has blood in it, so you don't have to worry about that. Another one, Stephen Gamble. He is the artist behind Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Absolutely amazing artwork. That is one of the biggest inspirations for me for everything since I was probably 5 or 6 years old. I got into horror at a really, really young age, and his artwork was just always my biggest inspiration going forward. I still really want to learn how to draw like him, but he is just a master with inks and watercolors, and I feel like I would do him an injustice to try to mimic his style because it's so unique and beautiful and just amazing. And the last one, I'm really gonna butcher this name. It's a Polish name, but I'm gonna do my best. Zdzisław Benczynski. He was an artist through the 60s, through the 90s. Unfortunately, he is no longer with us, but he was really, really influential in like the abstract horror scene. He kind of skewed the entire view of photography in the 60s and did a lot of like really, really out there stuff. A lot of his art had to do with nudity and death and just so many things that weren't really acceptable back then, and it's just absolutely amazing. And I really recommend him, absolutely. And the last question of the night is how to get into Goth. So some of you might not know, you probably realized by now, but Smol Goth isn't just like a cutesy little name. Originally it was a pun on Small Titty Goth Girlfriend, which was a pun on Big Titty Goth Girlfriend, but I've shortened it to Smol Goth. But I am very, very, I guess, alternative. I wouldn't say goth because it's not always goth, but very alternative, very out there with the way I dress. And a lot of people have sort of like taken to looking up to me, which is really, really weird considering I'm not the best role model, but thank you guys, I appreciate you guys so much. But someone wanted to know how to just get started with that. And the biggest thing is when you start getting into goth, you're going to be really, really embarrassed of absolutely everything. I'll put some pictures on screen now of the way I used to look when I was 14, 15, just getting into the alternative fashion scene, and just like the evolution from then to now. But the baby bat phase of just figuring out what you want to do with your fashion, what you want to look like, what works with you, what doesn't work, how you want to do your makeup, how you want to do your outfits. It's 1 to 5 years of just absolute awkwardness. I have known that I was interested in goth culture and goth fashion since I was a little kid. I always looked up to like the Hex Girls and Sam Manson from Danny Phantom, and I loved Billy and Mandy growing up. I loved Courage. I loved all the creepy, weird shows, Invader Zim, all that. So I knew since I was really little that I was gonna be goth. I knew I was gonna have a red and black and white color scheme. It's been foretold by the prophecies, but the biggest thing is just like getting through that baby bat phase and getting through all that embarrassment and realizing that your baby bat phase does not define who you're going to be, it does not define who you are, and it's really, really important to go through that and experiment. And another thing too that really helps is having a solid inspiration. What kind of goth subculture do you want to look like you're a part of? There's so many different types of goth out there. People get really gatekeepy about it. I'm definitely not. I change my style from day to day, from week to week, to month to month. Sometimes I wear street fashion, sometimes I wear just full-on death rock, sometimes I'm more trad goth, sometimes I'm more punk. It's all depends on the day for me. And a lot of people nowadays are like that. That's kind of like the new goth scene, but finding an inspiration when you're in your baby bat phase is really important, because then you can kind of narrow down what you're interested in, and if it doesn't work for you, you can move on to the next one, move on to the next one. For me, goth is more about like the fashion and belonging than the music. Like, a lot of people like to gatekeep. A lot of people get really upset if you're not into that kind of music, but there's so many different kinds of like metal and grunge and just goth music that you can get into, that you don't have to be into the classic stuff to be goth anymore, which I think is really important to like tell people and make sure they feel like they're accepted, because a lot of goth culture is about just accepting each other for who you are and just being fine with who you are. And that's honestly the most important part of getting into goth, is just learning to accept yourself, learning to accept that humans are just beings with flaws, and we're not all great. But we're gonna do our best to be there for each other, we're gonna do our best to support each other, to help each other, to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. I definitely was not the best version of myself when I was a baby bat, but I have really grown into the goth culture, grown into being a full-fledged goth, and it's really great to see people wanting to get into that. Anyway, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing me ramble about your questions and what you wanted to know about me. I hope you guys enjoyed the time lapses most of all. I have a lot more coming. I have almost half of my Inktober prompts done. I'm doing my own prompt list this year just to avoid the controversy a little bit. But I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, I definitely recommend liking, subscribing, following my social media, because I'm going to be doing a lot more of these in the next few weeks, the next few months, probably, hopefully the next few years. I'm trying to get back into streaming lately. That's been a lot of fun. So I also have my Twitch in the description, and I have a Discord server if you guys want to join that too. It's not very active right now, but we're going to be working on that over the next month. So definitely check it out if that's something you're interested in. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end, for listening to all this rambling. I really appreciate you guys. So stay safe, stay spooky, and we'll see you next time. Bye.